You haven't got the questions, have you?
I don't have the questions, no.
Welcome back.
I didn't know it.
Welcome back to the supremely organised.
I didn't
ESPN
know
FC.
it. Just in the old days. I mean, I started this show by calling it Press Pass. So
You did.
We're in an old
did
days.
you do that on purpose?
No.
Or did it just?
Well, you had been talking about Press Pass before we came on the air.
I did.
And it was still in my head.
I know.
It was still in my head, and
I
I
haven't got
came
the
on.
questions. Why don't you throw your phone on the ground, break it?
I have the questions.
So when you come on here,
somewhere.
and you said Press Pass, which is for the slightly younger viewers, is the old version of FC, which was an international show, which Mr. Marcotti worked on for many years.
Founding member of.
Back in the day.
Yep.
There was an eclectic mix of guests back then and presenters. You and Derek.
Yep.
Tommy, Yanis.
Smith was part of that.
Robbie Musto, Robbie Earl,
was in the
Gab.
fold for a while.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, there's a history to this. There's a rich history. I think we can call it rich. Okay, I have the questions. Thanks to producer Mike for that. Who do you think?
Don't thank him. He left you hanging.
Well, he did, but you know, it's all live television. Good stuff. Who do you think Cole Palmer will replace if or when he returns to the England squad? We were talking about Tuchel's no room for the three big guns, but he didn't even talk about Cole Palmer.
Well, it depends how Cole Palmer. I mean, he's been out. He seems to have been away for quite some time, but it depends how he plays. It's as simple as that. You know, the Cole Palmer. I can't remember. It's all rolled into one. At one point, a year or so ago, he was just outstanding. But there's a lot of people putting their hand up for that kind of position, and it just depends on form. Now, if he's playing well and he's fit again for Chelsea and he's creating and he's doing what Cole Palmer can do, he'll be in the squad. There's no doubt about that. Will he be in the starting 11? I don't know.
Yeah. Gab, would Thomas Tuchel start Cole Palmer if he's fit?
Well, I mean, he answered that question for us. You know, what he said, orthodox wingers. If he sticks with the wingers, there's only one place Cole Palmer can play, unless something happens to Harry Kane and you decide to play him up front, which he's done a little bit of in the past. But that's a number 10. And as Craig said, for number 10, he'd have to beat out Bellingham and Morgan Rogers and Phil Foden. On his day, he can do that. But, you know, 2025 Cole Palmer hasn't been as good as 2024 Cole Palmer. So if we get 2024 Cole Palmer, I think he definitely has a shot. But we just haven't seen that in this calendar year yet.
James with a question for Nedum. Nedum, what's the ceiling for Nico O'Reilly at left back for England and for Manchester City? And how much is he worth? James wants you to put a figure on it.
Do you know what's ridiculous, to be honest? The fact that City have been on this better run now with two attacking midfielders playing fullback. It's not something that I saw would happen. And, you know, for long parts of the season, I thought, well, this just isn't going to work out. You know, Nico at the start of the last season, I think it was in the Community Shield, was basically playing as an attacking midfielder for Man City. Now he's just like a left back and starting left back for England. That's where he's made his debut. I didn't see it. But I think in terms of the left back position, I think the way that Pep Guardiola wants him to play will make him a good player for Pep Guardiola. But in terms of traditional left back traits or full back traits, I personally don't see that as he's going to be his position long term. I think he'll end up going back into midfield, probably attacking midfield. And as for his value, you've got to ask yourself the question, who's going to be the one to buy him? But for how well he's doing right now as a young player, 50 million? Maybe that's the number?
I just love his composure.
Yeah.
I love the way he has his socks down as well. It kind of just oozes like a little bit of confidence, not arrogance, but confidence. And I just love his composure. Nothing seems rushed to him. And I think that's a very good sign for any young player. That, you know, Mo Salah hasn't had the greatest start to the season. That's been well documented, but he never got a kick basically from. He had one chance in the game. It came off nothing to do with Nico O'Reilly. I think it was a long ball over the top. So the fact that he's playing out of position and the fact that he's playing with such confidence and class, and he steps in, makes his debut for England, playing that position. Okay, it wasn't the strongest opposition, but you're still at Wembley. You're still making your debut.
Yeah.
The nerves are there. You know, early days, but just a terrifically talented young man.
Yeah. Gab, care to weigh in on a valuation? What's he worth?
I mean, presumably, I don't know if he signed his serious City contract or he's still on the kids contract, but if he signed his serious one, I don't think it's going to be, far off that 50 million, simply because the number of teams that could actually acquire him are going to be very limited. But I just want to say, though, if we can give a quick shout out to Pep Guardiola, because Nedum alluded to it there. You have two number 10s playing as your fullbacks at Manchester City. Not that long ago, he won a title with basically two center backs playing at fullback. And this is the same guy, and it wasn't that long ago. So I think it just shows you how I think there's very few managers who actually kind of continually evolve and are courageous enough to make these sweeping changes as Pep, and it's part of the reason why he's still pretty much the gold standard out there for me.
Yeah. All right, Craig, I don't know if you're going to like this. Jack Cake asks a question that has been asked many times for the last 3 months, I think. Can or could Hugo Ekitike and Alexander Isak play together up front for Liverpool?
I think they could. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about what a manager wants. If you'd said, could Alexander Sørloth and Erling Haaland play up front for Norway? You say, well, the purists out there would say, no, they're two big guys. You can't. But they did, and they've been successful to an extent. I mean, I think they could, but you have to look at the way Liverpool under Klopp and under Slot have approached the game, and it hasn't been with two. Now, would that happen sometimes during a game? Potentially, yes. But I always think good players can play, clever players can play with clever players. And I think both these guys are. Ekitike's movement's a little bit different to Isak. So yeah, I think they could, but I don't think we will see it very often or often at all from the start of a game. We may see it during a game if things are going against Liverpool. But yeah, potentially, yes.
All right, on we go. Globetrotting Gab's Travels asks Nedum, what are your thoughts on MLS switching to the European calendar? About time. I think that the owners voted on it today, Nedum, didn't they? And I think it's going to happen in 2027.
I think it's a positive in some ways, but what I would say is that not every state is in a good position to be able to play football over winter. I think, yes, it's great if you're in the South, if you're in the Floridas, if you're in the Texases and so on, but how's that going to work for, say, other places? Say, like, if you're going to Minnesota, if you're going to, like, KC, like you see it in things like the NFL, for example, where it's just complete blizzards and so on. So it'll be interesting to see how they do manage to do that. But in some ways, trying to align themselves with that, getting the same sort of international breaks and so on, I think that will be a positive.
Yeah.
But for me, I think the bigger thing also is in terms of viewership, especially when it comes down to, say, some of the months where it gets a bit warmer. The games have to be played later in the day. If they're played later in the day, they fall in line to where only people in the USA and maybe people in Asia somewhere can watch the games. But that whole section in the middle of Europe and so on, it's just far too late to be tracking any team, no matter how much you love them.
Supposedly, Nathan, they are going to take a break. Mid-December to mid-February is built into this kind of European schedule. It'll be like a...
Okay.
How do you do that then?
Well,
how can it be a European schedule if you're taking that, or they have less games?
They do have less games.
So if you had a European schedule, right, in Europe, obviously, and you took that time off, you couldn't fit the season in.
Well, I guess it's Germany takes, what do they take off? 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, but you're saying December through...
Saying 2 months.
I get it, and Nedum's right. I mean, he knows more about it than me. But, it's all very well moving it to fit in with the mainstream calendar in Europe. But it's bloody freezing here in a lot of places. I mean, it's bad enough in Connecticut.
The coldest I've ever been was...
And this isn't bad.
Yeah. In Toronto in December, Kansas City in December.
But you've got to think about the players, the fans, everybody, Yeah. So I don't know. Good luck to them.
But it's marrying with the European transfer windows gap that is driving this, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously that's become a bigger factor as we've seen more players move back and forth for fees. I would hope that's not the main driving reason behind it. But yeah, they're going to have to work something out with the weather. I mean, Russia stops. They have a big long break. Others play. I mean, the Republic of Ireland, where let's face it, it can be rainy, but it's comparatively mild. They actually moved to a summer schedule, right? So I think it's a great question of what's it going to be like. Are you going to get a whole bunch of postponements? Are you going to force fans to stay out there? Because mid-December to mid-February is great, but you can get a blizzard in March in Toronto or Kansas City or heck, even New Jersey, right? So I guess they're going to see how this works out, but I hope they leave themselves plenty of space in the calendar for make-up days and finding ways to somehow make fans whole if teams are played, if games are snowed off or just played in absurd conditions. This is not the NFL. This isn't where oh look, television timeout. Let me go inside and get a hot chocolate and stuff, and let me wear 87 layers to the game. It's complete, and it's only 8 or 9 home games. This is a much longer season.
Yeah, they're nuts, aren't they?
They are. I think that's the official description.
Nuts. You watch the games up in Buffalo and all that, and you're thinking, I mean, but to go back to that point, one of the points, years ago, and it might just have been muted at the time in Scotland, they were actually talking about, and I think it only got to talks about trying to move the schedule to a summer schedule. And it wasn't for the weather, because the weather's a bit drear and miserable in Scotland, a bit like me. But it was more to do with the fact that the Premier League was eating up the viewership. The Premier League was so popular, particularly in the UK, for Sky Sports and the other broadcasters, that Scottish football was getting the titbits.
Yeah.
And so they thought about moving it for the reason of getting more viewership and more interest. So they would play in the summer when there was no Premier League football, and that would maybe drive subscriptions and interest. So there are various ways to look at this, but that wasn't weather related, and of course it never happened. But yeah, it's going to be, wouldn't it be great if you're a player and they say, December to when? February?
Yes.
Am I getting it off?
That's some warm weather holidays right there, isn't it?
Or am I training? Yeah.
All right, finally, Andas asks Nedum, what's the deal on you playing in the Cheshire Vets Football League? What made you want to play in a Sunday league? And are you worried about embarrassing yourself since you're an ex-pro?
So firstly, I'm not worried about embarrassing myself. And I've only ever played in one game. So the few guys like Stephen Ireland, George Boyd, Emil Heskey's played, Danny Drinkwater's played, I think and a couple, Jolan Lescott's played. And Stephen Ireland said to me, you should come try and play, it's good fun, because sometimes I'll play football with him on a week, just like an in-house game every other week or something. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll come and do it. I did it. And based on the scoreline and the fact that word was starting to spread that, there are a few former professionals in this team, it started to blow up, and all of a sudden now there've been news stories about it. It's been on TV, it's been in newspapers and so on, and that doesn't really do it for me, to be honest. I didn't really want to do it for that. I just wanted to try and have a kick around on a weekend.
Right.
So I'm kind of turned off by it a little bit, but ultimately, in terms of embarrassment, no, it's very tough to feel any level of embarrassment because, firstly, it's over 35s. And considering I am an over 35 former professional playing against over 35s non-former professionals, it's quite tough to feel embarrassed by anything that you see on that pitch. And I can say now, at this stage of my life, after playing in this one game, I have seen everything.
Yeah,
I have seen everything there is to see in football.
Yeah.
I don't think people realise what the ex-professional who's in reasonable shape compared to Joe Bloggs, who played with his mates down the park, or even played, at some decent level. To think that,
Right. So the Connecticut Vets had never tried to rope
the
the
one thing that has always worried me, and that's why I don't do it, and I haven't done it for years, is I got a few old buddies at Celtic and other clubs that have and do love to try and have the kickabout, as Nedum mentioned, but the proverbial kickabout has ended up with a snapped Achilles.
Yeah.
Or a torn cruciate ligament, and I'm thinking, I'm way past that, you know what I mean? So the risk is not worth the reward.
Stevie Nicol, I believe, still played in some of these Massachusetts leagues to a ripe old age.
Well, he played at Doncaster until he was he loved it. I've talked to Stevie about this, and everybody's different. A few of us couldn't wait to start. He loved it. He was going to Doncaster. In fact, I was with one of his buddies yesterday, James Proctor. who was at Doncaster with him, and he just
loves the play. Yeah?
He just loved that. But yeah, everybody's a little different. I'd love to see him doing it now.
Yeah,
Nico.
Maybe it could be arranged as part of the ESPN FC Invitational Golf. We'll have a little side attraction.
So back in the hot seat today.
Yes, and back tomorrow.
Oh,
it's a twofer.
Well, I don't know if you're back tomorrow after calling it press
That's
pass.
the plan. Yeah, maybe I'll get another word after the show is better.